When the ecosystem was first starting out in I guess maybe 2017, 18, most of these funds were first getting started. They were all risk takers. They were investing in great founders, weird concepts. And so they were all like investing in interesting things and interesting founders. Now, that's not the case. I think most of the new funds that have been launched in the past 2 years have just kind of been doing rinse and repeat.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the 27th episode of the VC React podcast. Every week, we bring you insights and reactions from top VCs, LPs, and angel investors reacting to the latest news on startups, VCs, and investment rounds. Let's jump into it with our amazing guests for today. Hasan Haider, founder and managing partner at Plus VC. Mohamad Khawaja, founding partner at Fikr Ventures. And Sortur, founding partner at SquareCircle Ventures. And as always, my co-host Jamie Lane from FWDstart. In the video description, you can find more details on our guests, their LinkedIn profiles, and links to their company's websites. Our weekly news are brought to you by FWDstart, a twice-weekly newsletter that breaks down what's happening in the MENA startup, VC, and tech space. Welcome, everyone. How was the Web Summit?
Amazing.
It's great. Yeah, I think it's my favorite event in the region now. Don't tell
Compared
anyone.
to Leap or 24 Fintech or other events or Stat, how was Web Summit compared to those?
I mean, all the events are different, right? You're going for different reasons, different markets and stuff. But one of the things that I like is to go to an event that has a good grassroots feeling. Like you have a nice sort of atmosphere there. It's not too big so that you can talk to people and have real conversations. It's not too crowded and stuff. So that's kind of the events that I like. And I think unfortunately some events in the region have started to get a bit too big. And there's benefits to that as well, but not it's not as much fun to be at huge events. I think that's the only thing. So, but I'm a VC, so I have to go to everything. That's kind of part of the job.
Samir, I've seen you in the Web Summit.
It was my first Web Summit, and my favorite part of Web Summit is the investor lounge, where most of the activities, whether it's Leap or Step or, that's where the action happens. And in some cases, I pitch in to mentor as well. The interesting thing about Web Summit specifically is, as Hasan mentioned, is that compact nature of where everything gets done. And being my first time, I felt Qatar is really ready to receive a lot of global, not only capital, but interesting startups. I've had different conversations with different people, including in the government. I see a different level of openness, especially for global startups coming into the region with Qatar. So very positive news. Very pumped up to see what Qatar is working next on.
I'm glad you mentioned the investor lounge because I saw all the investors in the investor lounge and the founders cannot get in the investor lounge. So it's a place where founders and VCs should meet, but no, it's just the investors talking to each other and then the startups are out there. And funny enough,
not for us, dude. Like I set up a full schedule of meetings. Our team was like meeting all the startups, going one by one and seeing all the things. But yeah, I did spend quite a bit of time in the investors lounge because one of the things that I like to do with these events is talk to the other VCs and catch up and tell them about the new companies that we were investing in. So it's always good to do that as well.
Ahmad, what do you think?
I think Ahmad is speaking about the fancy investors lounge by QIA, but there are other lounges for matching, which are also great for the interaction that Hasan is speaking about. I think what's great about it is that for us as a newly established VCs, we get to see and meet many VCs in person while we've been virtually very well connected, yes. But also meeting them in person is great to co-invest and discuss their strategies and brief them about what we do. And also meet startups at the other lounges, the less fancy ones, as maybe the others were there as well. Yeah, so it's a great event. I enjoyed Web, and I look forward to be here in the upcoming years.
Well, we have a lot to cover for today. Jamie, I hear that you got us some news on EdTech, which is something we don't really talk about that much. What's happening this week?
Yeah, this is a placed segment to purposely sow disagreement right off the
Okay.
top. So yeah, this is nearly a funding announcement I kind of glossed over. It was about 2 weeks back. I think it was during Leap, because I kind of struggled to not to make sense of it, but to figure out exactly what was going on with it, because it wasn't entirely obvious from the press release. So look, I've done a bit of digging into it, and I think I have a better understanding of what exactly is taking place here. So there's a 28 million Series B announced for Ula.me, who I could find zero background on at the time, but I now have a great understanding that it's really a rebranding exercise, it seems, for Joe Academy, a Jordanian-based EdTech. So the particular funding round is led by Saudi-based Real Growth Fund, and you've participation as well from the Jordan Capital and Investment Fund and Forsan Group, who previously acquired a 49% stake in Joe Academy as well back in 2021, kind of at the height of the pandemic EdTech boom. So yeah, the Joe Academy, or ULA, whatever we're calling exactly, it started back in MENA in 2014 by Ala Jarar, a telecommunications engineer turned entrepreneur. Initially focused on sort of K-12 online learning and exam prep, but has since expanded. But essentially, this seems like a kind of a rebrand expansion of Joe Academy, and they're dropping the JO to make it less Jordan specific. And I guess that the ULA is more sort of pan-Arabic feel to things, so it works as far as that's concerned. So as far as I'm aware, I think they're retaining the sort of I think it's a 2 million plus user base that they have, and they have a pretty expansive course library as well, something like 13,000 courses. They've delivered like 200,000 hours of instruction over the course of the last 10 plus years as well. Things that they, I guess, have name checked as well. It's a bit buzzy for my liking. You have AI, AR, VR. I'm not entirely sure how this is all going to be incorporated. There definitely is there's a lot of AI buzz in EdTech, how well incorporated this is going to be. You've personalized learning, you've personalized tutors, you've, immersive experiences. I don't know. I've heard a lot of this stuff. I don't know exactly how it's going to go. I don't want to cast aspersions necessarily either. On the business model, I'm not entirely sure. It seems subscription based, but they've also name checked partnerships with institutions as well. I know that they previously had, as Joe Academy, they had partnerships with WISE, and I think as well with the Ministry of Education in Jordan, again during COVID too. It's a competitive space regionally as well. I mean, there's a couple of well-funded startups, sizable war chests. You have Abab, Noon Academy, Classera as well. So look, it remains to be seen exactly what they're bringing to the table. I'm not entirely sure, but look, let's discuss exactly what we think of EdTech maybe broadly, and this whole AI moment that we're having as far as EdTech is concerned.
You're in luck, my friend. We have an EdTech investor, Mohamad Khawaja.
Yes.
So let me start with Mohamad. Mohamad, EdTech funding, it seems that it comes in waves, and we've seen the massive hype and the pandemic, but since then, many EdTech startups struggle to maintain traction post-pandemic. Do you think investors are betting on a new sustainable era for EdTech, or is this just another cycle of excitement?
I totally agree. The one during the pandemic and right after the pandemic was investors with like a short-term tailwinds, if I may say, not really long-term fundamentals. I mean, when school reopened, demand for some solutions shrank, and we needed something totally different, not just digitizing content, but we need much more beyond that. And I think here comes like what a new wave of EdTech can be, which is maybe with AI, not the hype, but the real AI, and maybe with more like transformation on the real education side. I mean, I've been witnessing how education K-12 and also higher education is changing. And I see now academics, including university presidents and everyone says like, change in education is overdue. We really like why you need 4 years to get a bachelor's degree. It should be a skill-based degree. It's not like a time-based degree. And like there is a lot of global shift that is happening. And there is a lot of excitement around really transforming education on its own. And now digital transformation will be part of this change. So it's not like with digital solutions, we're pulling educators to change, they are changing intrinsically from within. And I think this is the fundamental way. Now, if I may elaborate, I think Ola is one of the examples. The previous ones also mentioned here, like Noon Academy and others, are making use of this change. And I guess being like a vertically focused accelerator will help us work with the ecosystem. I mean, I know being like, a VC that is across the board will definitely like not maybe doing well in one EdTech or two EdTech in your portfolio, but being very focused, maybe this is our approach that we expect to have a major impact in this.
I wish you luck, honestly speaking, like, because my EdTech investments have been shit. Like, it's one of the worst. And the problem is, it always looks great, right? You've got great founders, you've got great, like the hockey stick looks really good early on, customer acquisition is great, all of that. And then without fail, every single one of the investments plateaus, then you start to see, flat line for a while, and then they die. And it's just like it's the same repeated thing. And I don't learn my lesson very easily, so I've done it 3 times. But it's kind of the same thing, like over and over again. So for me, like, and it always comes back to the same thing. Everyone's like, I'm gonna match you with the tutor, and the tutor matching thing is a disaster, and it comes in cycles every few years, and everyone's like, oh, we're the first to do it. I was like, no, you're not. I've seen like so many waves of you guys over the past 15 years, right? So, like, I believe in the opportunity for EdTech. Like, for that, I'm there. Like, I want to invest in great companies that are disrupting EdTech. But when it comes to their D2C stuff, like, it just hasn't worked. There's always something that goes wrong, and it's related to, I don't know, it's related to retention, it's related to disintermediation or whatever, and then it dies. And then the ones like that sell to schools, oh my God, like that's like the worst sales cycle I have seen in my life, right? Like there's a narrow window and they have attention for you. And if you don't get them sold in that period of time, forget it. You've got to wait another year. And so like it's for those suck as well. But I still have investments. So we've done Educately, which is also an ed tech, but they're more focused on getting students to understand what university to go to and things like that. So it's a slightly different aspect of EdTech. And then we did Patron, which is, study now, pay later sort of stuff in Egypt as well. So there are areas within EdTech that might make sense, but the obvious ones where you think are going to disrupt the whole education industry, never do it. So I don't.
The biggest challenge, let's start from the basics of EdTech. I think the opportunity lies with identifying the right university students. So I've been advising and invested in a company based out of India, which is actually is present in about 12 universities now in the UAE, and they're expanding into Saudi and Qatar. The interesting part is universities and schools spends hundreds of thousands of dollars to actually recruit the right students. They set up offices or affiliates in Africa and India and somewhere where they see affluent individuals are coming. That's a space which very less edtechs have actually made their mark. Considering ULA specifically, so I see opportunity, something to build like an EdTech CRM. Those can scale, identifying the right students to bring in who have paying capacity. And then those students can also pay for e-learning and things like that as they come into the education system. The problem which I see with regional EdTech, and I've mentored a few, I've not invested in any EdTech in the region, because they're very regional. They can scale in Saudi, they can scale in Jordan and Egypt. They can raise a significant amount of money because new capital or legacy capital is being unlocked now. So a lot of legacy capital, for example, a chairman of a university or a provost or, who has excess capital in Saudi can just come in as a big angel investor in the fund, supported by him, or can come in and unlock the value. But again, it's very limited. Second is real monetization models don't exist. They have typical the AI and AR is a sort of hype. 2 years it'll die, and then what will happen is the real opportunity or the real content which the students intend to use, if that's not effective, then the usage will start slowing down, and slowly the adoption will get hampered. So most of the founders, as I see, will raise significant capital, but again, I think market is limited. Opportunities are exciting. Monetization models are not clear unless that somebody comes in and shapes or reshapes. I think we're gonna see some slow cycles in EdTech, and obviously Hasan and Mohamad mentioned about long sales cycles in EdTech, and so that is another. Education typically has their own procurement cycles. We actually resell into all of the universities across the region. All right, one of our companies, and we've already noticed that even the simple thing as their annual subscription renewal doesn't happen in time. It goes overboard by 1 or 2 months, till the time the students are desperately contacting us to, hey, can we start using the software? How can you help out? So I think some automation and some understanding needs to be there. And one advice to the founders is sell 3 or 5 year subscription plans to the EdTech universities and others. So you have a longer subscription plan you've already sold, get upfront money. I think you'll be able to sustain and obviously give a good value to your investors as well.
Just speaking of business models, because I sat on the board of Kutubi, I can say like certain business models, do work on EdTech. One of is B2B2C, because we as parents pay money to schools of our kids. So, paying an extra subscription embedded in our, list of fees that we submit to the schools of our kids would be something that's smoothly happening. So Kutubi, and also, by the way, it has high retention. Like I've never seen like a school opting out of our software, Kutubi, which is an interactive reading platform that is like also K-12 and empowering school kids to interactively read content, Arabic, English, and French. And
how many years are the renewals? How many years have the schools renewed?
So it's a 5-year startup, and none of the schools opted in the first like 3 years opted out. So that tells that schools are just renewing because it's becoming an embedded part of their curricula. It's embedded part of their ecosystem. So this is, and by the way, like I'm really happily to say that Kutubi managed to sell in 26 countries where their sales team never visited maybe more than 8. So that tells that these platforms are able even to do the SaaS thing smoothly across the borders of the countries. People felt like maybe the Arab region is fragmented somehow, like, not the same curricula, not the same ecosystem and regulation and policies. But, it's happening. And I guess B2B2C is a great model. Like you basically sell to schools.
Mohamad, like whatever you've got. I want to invest in EdTech. I'm grumpy, but like I actually really believe in the whole thing, and especially Arabic education and stuff is a disaster. So anything that could improve that, my son like needs as much help as possible. So
our pleasure.
Yeah, so send whatever you got, dude. Like I want to invest in EdTech. It's just been miserable so far. So
Hasan, what needs to be changed in EdTech for you to be excited about investing in those companies?
The way schools operate, but I don't think that's gonna change. Like they just how they operate. Like it's really weird. Like the schools which are training the next generation of humans are behind on the adoption of technology themselves, right? It's so difficult for them to adopt anything. But it ranges from school to school. Like my kid's school is not bad. It's pretty okay. But yeah, I don't know. Like the whole industry is I think it's one of the hardest industries to sell into.
Yeah. But to that point, Mohamad, let me get back to you. So Ola wants to bridge the gap between public and private education in Saudi. But let's be honest, government-backed education reforms are complex, slow-moving, heavily regulated. Can an EdTech startup realistically scale while relying on public sector adoption, or should they stick to the premium markets?
The only way to scale is to reach out to public sector. The B2G model is key, but it's not the easiest thing to start with. I mean, I see now, like for Kutubi as an example, going B2G in some Arab countries is basically like a gold mine, because simply you unlocked the value proposition, the ones that is really needed. You have a case study. If you go B2G, definitely like you get one bill paid frequently in each and every country and each and every province, if you may even fragment it a little bit. I think what's special about the case of Ola, just highlighting this case, is that now they will actively subsidize the public education under maybe the Saudi Vision 2030 and making like public education of quality and of digitally transformed education. And I think this is great. I mean, if we basically run this model in Saudi Arabia and get to see the results and Ola, maybe we definitely, that will create even similar success stories across the region. I look at Egypt, by the way, with an emphasis, because simply, Egypt is like the comparable market to India, and India has EdTech unicorns that are very successful, and they are basically very scalable and growing. So I think countries of scale like Egypt and also Saudi Arabia, in terms of like also capital and efficiency of running things, is definitely of value for the EdTech scene. So I look at Saudi Arabia and Egypt as great markets to explore. Saudi Arabia for being able to subsidize the initial attempts and give them the chance to thrive and grow. Egypt because of the population and the appetite, and there's an existing player there. I can give them also credit. Adventures is a great player. They started early on, and mashallah, like they have iSchool and other in their portfolio. They were doing very well. I mean, I'm very impressed about their progress.
In fact, I was wanting to come to iSchool because iSchool has actually changed the face of EdTech by focusing on math education, science education, and the baseline is coding. So, you cannot change the curricula of the schools, but can we make it more skill-based? And that's where if you're trying to move into standard education, you'll hit the rock. But if you're trying to kind of say, what is my adjacent market, and which iSchool has done beautifully, and this is why they've scaled, outside of their comfort zone.
Let's end this conversation on what Jamie mentioned in the beginning with AI. It seems that EdTech sounds great on paper: personalized learning, adaptive curriculum, predictive analytics, but
bullshit.
Yeah. Well,
most of that's bullshit. So
yeah. Okay, so that's my question. Is it really genuinely game-changing, or is it just a repackaging of what happened before?
Implementations of AI are definitely going to be game-changing, but most of the startups now that are just throwing AI into their news announcements and their pitch decks or whatever, most of it's bullshit, right? So like there's a small like percentage of them that are actually using AI to make things better. The majority of them, it's one of the hype words to throw into your deck. So the moment I see it, I roll my eyes backwards until I actually see it really being used as part of the product. So yeah,
I see Gen AI, just to kind of like final thoughts. Gen AI, which is assisted learning, using assisted learning, some of the startups could succeed actually, because you're seeing startups actually implementing copilots into learning, and also there are some EdTech startups which are very good, which are for specially abled children, for assisting in specially abled children, and those differentiate really. Obviously, they're very niche EdTech, but they're really also not only catering to kind of braille education or assisted learning, but they're also bringing in now empowering normal people, normal students to do platform-based learning. So that is a great opportunity. The only challenge I see, one is there is a central school environment here, right? Like be it public sector or private sector in the region. So they have their own systems to implement. So it's hard for a startup to kind of sell into that schooling system to get across the board, right? So that could be one of the sales challenges for the startups.
I just can say this basically, that definitely Gen Alpha is ready for AI-driven solution. Could be like a companion, like a co-pilot, as mentioned by the gentleman, and definitely that can be something really effective in their education. I believe like kids can learn now, this younger generation, Alpha and Beta in the future, would definitely enjoy learning from AI than humans. So maybe this is a great trend that we can build on. And I trust entrepreneurs will unlock this globally and regionally, inshallah.
It's really hard for me, someone who's that old, to reimagine my education journey with AI and not with the teachers. I think it would be fun, but also you lose that touch with the human touch with the teachers and what you learn from their experiences. But yeah, it's a different world now.
Yeah, Gen
Let's
Alpha is
move to
different.
everybody. Yes.
Yeah.
Let's move to everybody's favorite sector, fintech. What's happening in fintech this week, Jamie?
Yeah, let's chat about revenue-based financing, which is certainly having a moment regionally as well. Hasan has his fingerprints over this one too. So there's a fingerprints over another story we'll come to as well. Hasan, you've been busy of late. So I'm struggling to keep track of everything Plus VC is doing at the moment. You've had a very quick start to the year.
That's only what we've announced, by the way. So there's a lot that are in the pipeline.
Oh, okay, that's a teaser. We'll have you back. So in future weeks, let us know. Let us know. Yeah, so we Flow 48. They have secured a 69 million in a Series A funding round, a combination of debt and equity, led by Briga, participation from 212, Speed Invest, Daphne Endeavour Capitalist, Evolution Ventures, and Plus VC, last but not least. And this comes after there is a 25 million pre-series A back in November 2023. Again, that was a mix of debt and equity as well. A lot of the same investors there too. Founded back in 2022 by Idris Al Rifai of Fikr fame. And a gentle plug here as well. Actually did an interview with Idris recently on all things Fikr and Glovo and Flow 48. So that'll be coming up soon as well. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Subscribe to Foodtech. In terms of what Flow 48 does, it offers revenue and invoice-based financing under flexible terms to SMEs in the UAE and South Africa. And with the latest funds, it's now going to be expanding into Saudi as well. Yeah, according to the website, Flow 48 can offer up to 20 million in funding to each business. Need at least 1 year of trading history and at least 100K in annual revenues as well. It's a crowded space, but obviously there's a colossal need for it as well. So that's by no means necessarily a bad thing. You've Credible X raised 55 million, labeled the seed round before Christmas. You have obviously Flapcap, Cairo based. You have Airad. So there's plenty operating in the space. And Ahmed, you know a thing or two about it as well.
Yeah, we have revenue as well. Well, I'm biased when it comes to revenue-based financing, but let me ask the contrarian question, and I'll start with Hasan, because you've invested in this deal. Do you think MENA's ecosystem is big enough to sustain this model at scale, or are we seeing investors pushing RBF harder than the actual demand?
I mean, I invested, so I spoke with my dollars, right? So I definitely think there's
yes.
No, I think look, the banking system doesn't really serve the way the current economic environment operates in the region, you know? So the banks really and they don't really need to. They don't care, and they're still making money. So why even bother taking extra risk or work with SMEs or any of that? So unless there's government mandated stuff like what's been happening in Jordan and a few other markets, they won't even look at it. And that leaves a massive gap because the majority of economic activity is led by SMEs in every single market. And if they don't have the funding that they need in order to continue to expand and scale and grow, then economies are going to be a bit stagnant. So it's a pretty big opportunity, right? So it's billions and billions of dollars that can be deployed into these sort of companies. And you know our thesis, we invest in people, and you know, Jamie spoke about Idris's background, and I'd invested in Idris's previous company as well, and he's a great guy. And so he came back and he's like, I'm doing something again in the region. I was like, okay, cool, like let's do it. So that's usually the way that we make our investments, is on people. And the opportunity is huge. Don't worry, Ahmed. There's a lot of opportunity for you as well.
Okay.
You know,
I'm not worried, my friend.
We won't crush you just yet. There's
Okay,
space.
okay. No, there is room for co-lending.
No, there's so much opportunity. Like when you look at the space, it's crazy. And the thing is, you look at the neobanks and everyone that's trying to do that. Most of the neobanks have been set up more to serve individuals than they have been set up to serve SMEs. The ones that have been set up to serve SMEs are like offering basic stuff, but they haven't really gone deep into what they can do in terms of offering. Because like working with SMEs, like offering them basic banking services is relatively easy, but going all the way into like, can we figure out how to tell whether these SMEs are actually worth lending to or not is a whole different universe. So there's so much to be done there.
Samir, what do you think about this whole thing?
Hey, first of all, I like that there is a bias. There is a huge opportunity, and congratulations to you for launching revenue-based financing, which is kind of very important in this region. I work with a lot of early stage founders at Founder Institute, so I exactly know where the gaps lie. But since last over 10 years, there have been traditional lenders like Beehive who have really penetrated into the market. And the Beehive stories is really great because they have used traditional plus new market models to actually penetrate into what we now call it as revenue-based financing. In the US, those models exist already, some of hundreds of millions of dollars. I have personally interacted with some of the funds who are deploying directly based on either invoice discounting or receivables. But the structure here in the region, the regulatory structure seems to me a challenge. For example, transparency of books of accounts. So those transparencies, unless and until the founders are willing to actually connect to those transparencies, right? Only then can a revenue-based financing startup will really leapfrog. While equity is one part, majority of you take any buy now pay later or a revenue-based financing startup. In the plane, I met Tabby's founder, right? So I was kind of chatting with him, and the challenge is, even if they have raised so much debt capital, the interest outgoing is very huge. So in order to balance between debt and equity, that's what founders have to do, that they have to really have a very good transaction pipeline in order to manage the mix of debt and equity. While there is opportunity, the operating margins will be less initially, but as transactions volume soar, I think there'll be better performance. So yes, another good option where founders don't, especially early stage, don't want to give equity. But also there is venture debt. A lot of venture debt is also coming into play. Some of these traditional funds, VC funds, are also launching venture debt funds, which are exclusive 100 million and above, right?
There's this vague line between venture debt and revenue-based financing companies, because, for example, we had Capify gave a $1 million venture debt loan to Brex, and we discussed that
which is one of my portfolio as well. So
which is Before I move to Mohamad, you've invested in competing companies over the past, 10, 15 years, right? How do you manage that? Do founders like it? Is there synergies between the companies, or do they not like it because you can see information from both companies?
So the first thing is that we don't convey data between startups for whatever reason, right? Like we don't tell what startup is going on with another startup. That's like basic, But other than that, we try not to invest in startups that are directly competing in the same market at the same time, right? So we might invest in a startup that's working in Jordan, another one that's working in Egypt or whatever. We could do that, but same market, same time. Typically, we wouldn't do that. Same market, different time obviously means the first one failed or it sucked, so now we're trying it again. So that's kind of how we look at investing in competitors. But yeah, there's spaces where even though they look like competitors, they really aren't. They can collaborate and work together and stuff like that. So, and usually like the thing is, most startups don't die because of a competitor. They die because of self-inflicted wounds, So it doesn't really matter that much.
Ahmad, what do you think about revenue-based financing?
Yeah, I totally see how much we learn from other ecosystems. So, I mean, if you look at Ahmed have been in Silicon Valley, and maybe many of you definitely spend good time there every year. The ecosystem there is very mature, like when it comes to different, I mean, financing players and even like those invest in losing companies, and you can see like there are exciting opportunities for anyone. While in our part of the world, definitely in this part of the region, people are not finding enough opportunity for financing. And I think revenue-based financing is great for many companies their banks shy away from them. And it's no-brainer for it to succeed. It's a matter to create maybe the first few success stories. So good luck, Ahmed. I can see like a few other quick wins happening, and inshallah with you as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, Jamie, move us to another story. What's happening in Dubai as well?
Let's talk about acquisitions, shall we? So we have Seas. They've been acquired by Pinewood Technologies for, I think, is it $46.2 million. They're acquiring, this was sort of foreshadowed back in September 2024 as well. Pinewood took I think it was a 9% stake for a $4.2 million investment. So not entirely surprising. This seemed to be on the cards to a certain extent. So they're acquiring the remaining 91%, so 100% acquisition of the firm. In terms of Seas, it's founded back in 2016 in Lebanon by Tarek and Andrew Karbit. Went through a pivot, originally began life as an automotive marketplace, but when automotive marketplaces sort of fell on hard times, as it were, kind of around 2022, your Kazoos and Carvanas, it pivoted to a sort of SaaS solution. So it now provides AI chatbots and sort of omni-channel solutions for retailers, has an office in Copenhagen, serves over 1,300 dealers across Europe and MENA. And I think that earlier investment by Pinewood back in September was to help facilitate entry into the US as well. So they've received quite a bit of funding. I think it was $18 million since pivoting to that SaaS model. You've BNY Ventures, Vanda Capital, Newa Capital as well. And Sarah from Newa Capital had quite a good piece. We might link to it maybe in the description in terms of Newa Capital's sort of journey with Seas up until this point, and sort of describing the challenges in terms of the pivot, etc., around 2022 and how they repositioned themselves and have really kicked on. Since then, it's interesting, Pinewood, it's a publicly listed company in terms of what they do. They provide cloud-based software solutions to automotive retailers across 21 different countries. So really the acquisition is really tapping into the AI capabilities that Seas offers. In terms of getting into the nitty-gritty of the deal, it's 22.8 million in cash, 3.9 million in ESOP option holders, and 6.6 in Pinewood shares. And the former Seas shareholders, I think it's going to be subject to a 6-month lockup period. So the transaction expected to close in March, I think 19th of March, 2025.
It's a small acquisition. If you have invested in this company, would you be satisfied with this acquisition, or would you push the founder to wait more? Samir, what do you think?
So recently, there was a company called Live Light, which is a software solution, for automating. They moved into devices first, right? Device management and device refurbishment and all of that. Then they moved into actually helping systems integration, or in fact, infrastructure management, something like ITIL. And as their scale grew, but they were still early stage, as their scale grew, one of the American companies called Zen Admin just acqui-hired the entire team. I was actually having a chat with the team. And if I were an investor in such a kind of a opportunity, I think a lot of founders, especially given the regional dynamics, are looking at early exits. They are not thinking through the whole process of building a company. They want to make quick cash, then launch a second company, and maybe third. So this whole thing of being an entrepreneur for 10 plus years, like the Silicon Valley culture, build a global company and all that culture still has to kind of penetrate into our region. So given these dynamics of Autotech and Seas, I would actually encourage the founder to wait till they find new markets, new customers, and a better valuation for them to exit.
I'm not so sure I agree with that, Samir. I think the region does have amazing founders that are like going all out, building great companies. But what we don't have in the region is the ability for these founders to keep raising funding forever to get there. So in situations like C's, I'm sure the situation was either the company goes to zero, there's no other path to fundraising, or take it down round, or here's a nice path to exit. Let's get the exit done, and at least the I guess 10 years of work that we've put into this company is worth something rather than nothing. So I think the founders did a great job. They made money for their investors, even if it wasn't a huge return, but at least it was a good return. I think the investors are okay and happy with those founders. Founders walked away with a little bit of money for all the effort and salaries that they waived and didn't take for the past few years, I guess, as well. So my thesis is take the money. If it's an early exit, take it, make your life a bit better. Usually it's situations where it's harder to raise the next round of funding that founders end up taking situation like smaller exits in that. And I've had several in my portfolio previously that did that. And the really funny thing is I've invested in their second startup now because they still have a chip on their shoulder. They're like, we didn't get to like the unicorn level. We
Yeah.
didn't get to where we wanted to. So we're gonna try it again. We're gonna do it. But now they have all the experiences they went through, so they should be better founders. Hopefully, that's kind of what we're hoping they figured out. So we invested in Okta again. John, I'd previously invested in this
Yep.
startup Nari that was acquired by
Yep.
by
Very.
um by Kareem and a few others. So I think that's the thing. Like I don't think it's a cultural thing. I think it's an ecosystem thing. We don't have as much funding for a lot of these startups to continue to grow and develop and stuff. And in our situation, whenever any of these situations happen, I encourage the founders, take the funding, take the money, go for the exit, make your lives better. And then when you want to do something else, let me know and I'll back you. I'll be your first check-in as well. So yeah, that's kind of the way I look at things like this. I'm pretty
Ahmad?
happy for C's. I think the founder did a great job finding an exit, and I think I think if he ever wanted to do another startup after taking a break for a few years, I'm sure most of the investors that backed him, the fact that he made money for them would back him again. So
Yeah.
that's the way I look
Ahmad,
at it.
what do you think?
Yeah, I think this is a strategic acquisition from an acquisition perspective. And for VCs, basically, I mean, it's saving the company from, God forbid, going into down round or maybe shutting down. Like operating in 16 markets is so big. I believe this is challenging from an economic perspective, from Mexico to Australia, if I'm not mistaken. So that tells how much, like operationally, such type of companies, they have like some operational inefficiency by nature. And I guess getting such a deal is definitely a success, regardless of the metrics of how many multiples are there or something. So I totally understand that this is a great strategic acquisition and good for everyone.
Jamie, you mentioned that they started with something else and then they pivoted. And I read somewhere that they started with this Shazam for cars. It's a very simple idea, yet compelling as a consumer app that gained 3 million users before they pivot into the platform or the B2B platform. And we've seen this pattern before. Instagram started as a check-in app. Carta began as a simple cap table software. It was called literally e-shares, converting the shares that you have from a paper form into an electronic ledger form. But what I'm seeing in the market that most of the VCs, not most, let's say many VCs, struggle to back simple ideas. And instead of trusting the natural evolution of the great founders, if they are great, and that they will pivot into something big, they shy away from investing in those simple, obvious ideas. What do you think is happening there? Let me start with you, Hasan.
Man, you hit one of the things I've been really annoyed about for the past few months. Okay.
Please go ahead.
So look, this is the thing.
Hasan, I know you wrote something about good companies versus great companies, or good founders versus great founders. Please touch on that as well.
Yeah, so look, here's the thing. When the ecosystem was first starting out in like I guess maybe 2017, 18, most of these funds were first getting started. they were all risk takers. They were investing in great founders, weird concepts, and so they were all like investing in interesting things and interesting founders. Now, that's not the case. I think most of the new funds that have been launched in the past 2 years have just kind of been doing rinse and repeat and just investing in things that they find comfortable and they know and they understand, and just, yeah, the concept seems good or whatever, but it's not something crazy, and it's not, backing the founders. And so that's the thing that I'm really annoyed about, because we need to have more creativity of thought when it comes to us as VCs backing really weird concepts and great founders, because the concept doesn't matter when we're investing at seed stage, right? We're investing in the people. And I think a lot of VCs that have just been coming to market over the past few years, they don't get that. It's not, they're thinking more like, honestly, the number of calls that I've had is like, but the tab looks small. I was like, dude, this isn't gonna be the idea that works. Like, forget about the tab. It's like, that's the least thing to worry about. This startup's probably gonna pivot 3 times before they figure out what they need to do.
Yep.
Back the founder, and then like the worst conversation is when everyone's like, oh, but the TAM looks small. I was like, that's the stupidest thing you can talk about at seed stage. I mean, not pointing fingers at anyone, but like the thing is like, two things. One is the startup is going to pivot multiple times, and the second thing is, if it's a really great startup and a great founder, they're going to create their own tab, right? Like Callow, when we invested in Callow, you look at the TAM of like the diet food like places that existed, it was tiny. You're like, oh, it's such a small market, but you back Ahmed and Rawi. That's what you do, And then Flowered, same thing. You look at the offline flower delivery, and it was small, and then you back Aziz Logani, right? That's our job as VCs. And I think a lot of the newer VCs don't really get that. And that's the part that I'm annoyed about. And thank you for setting me off, Ahmed. I appreciate it. And so, yeah, read my article, good versus great.
We will add,
startups.
we will add a link to the article in the description.
A lot of good startups in the market, but good shouldn't be what we're investing at VCs. We should be investing in what could be great. So that's really the thing. Yeah.
Ahmad.
Great line of thought, Hasan. I believe VCs are mandated to do what you highlighted, which is basically hunt for the craziest guys who, with the right mentorship and support, they can definitely, disrupt industries. So definitely, I believe, like, betting on even successful entrepreneurs is a great strategy who are like serial entrepreneurs. But I think even there are a new generation of entrepreneurs who require our attention. That's why I work closely with universities as a part-time professor at Hussein Technical University in Jordan, for example. That gives me really insights of a great generation of disruptive thinkers who can definitely disrupt industries and think totally outside the box. I think we need to bet on that next generation of entrepreneurs as well. And even like serial entrepreneurs as well, they can always bring into the table those crazy yet economically feasible ideas to bet on. Yeah, I look forward
you
to
had this
seeing
tagline. I think I remember something you mentioned, or tagline you used to say a lot, something about moonshots. What was that?
Yeah. Is it like shoot for the moon, or you mean?
Yeah.
Shoot for the moon. Even if you miss it, you land somewhere else on the stars or whatever. So definitely, even like our tagline in Fikr Ventures, just to do some sort of a promo, which is like fostering founders, transforming minds. Because simply, founders are the change makers for sure. We're there to bet on the best ones and maybe support them in their startup decisions. So I see like the greatest startups started with those crazy ones who are even like challenge their investors, many of those VCs say that. I don't want a yes sir type of entrepreneur. I want an entrepreneur who would challenge my thoughts even and bring in even better insights out of them.
I've been advising for a fundraise for a startup, which is, you won't believe, this startup is called Salmi. It's the UAE's first premium electric bike, designed, manufactured, RTA approved. This guy, formerly in government, left his full-time job, Emirati entrepreneur, brilliant. Now when VCs say like ourselves that we really want to find the right innovator, the right the founder, the right mindset, he has all of the aspects, because I've been working with him extremely closely with this fundraising round, which we are doing it at $2 million. And what I see, a lot of regional VCs when it comes to hardware innovation, and I want to specifically point out that an electric bike, indigenously electric bike designed here cannot be a success, right? That's the thought process. So while we all want to say that we will kind of back these interesting ideas and not only go behind e-commerce or fintech and all that, when it comes to writing a small $150,000, $200,000 check, and we have had multiple discussions with multiple investors, government agencies and such, right? They're all shying away. Now, so we've changed the model. And the reason we're changing the model is to get into pre-order. So we've launched pre-order. We've already have 67 pre-orders. And pre-order money is actually helping us manufacture and get bikes on the road, right? So what I really want to bring a point here is there are real innovators in our region. There are very few VCs or very few government entities who will look at them very seriously and say, I can do the seed capital and then help you move elsewhere. A lot of European and US VCs are interested to invest in the idea, but being a local entity, we're trying to figure out the ways they can invest, right? We've not structured it yet so that they can invest. But I think there is opportunity to invest in indigenous ideas. There are a bunch of indigenous ideas, right? Those kind of innovations are coming out. And I really see the next wave of local entrepreneurs. See, typically at Founder Institute, when we see early stage entrepreneurs, their average age is 38 years, meaning they have been in some corporate organization, made some money, are ready to bootstrap. So this bike startup completely bootstrapped itself till now, right? By winning some awards and things like that. I really think we want to support such entrepreneurs which can become global companies, from this region. Let's not go behind the the herd mentality.
It's never too late to start a company, and you have investors here who are telling you, go crazy, go for the moonshots, go for the weird ideas that could become great. We have an example of such a company that Hasan was talking about, and he actually invested in it. Jamie, what's next?
Yeah, I love cake, so I felt we needed to discuss this. So
Okay.
This is a startup I've been reaching out to soon. I've birthdays coming up, family birthdays. So if I can customize a cake quickly, that'll be great. But yeah, it's
hours, man. It takes you 24 hours for the cake to be delivered.
That's great. That's about when I remember the birthday is the following day. So that's fantastic. Yeah, it's around your neck of the woods, Hasan, Bahrain-based Lola. So yeah, customize and order cakes through its mobile app. They've raised 1.3 million pre-seed, led by Vision Ventures and yourself, plus VC, participation from angels as well. Founded by Osman Janahi in 2023. Hasan, would I be correct in thinking, was this part of the Callow Entrepreneur in Residence program?
That is 100% correct. Yes.
Okay, very interesting. Okay, cool. So launched first Bahrain, expanded to Riyadh in July 24, UAE in 24. I guess rather than run through it and talk to you about it, Hasan, why did you invest?
Basically, I was incubated by Ahmad at Callow, and he was like, "Hey, we've got a startup that I'm excited about." I was like, "Great, where do I sign?" So that was basically the entire decision-making process. I'm messing with it. So then I spoke with Ahmad, and he's phenomenal. He really knows what he's doing, and he showed me the early signs of traction, and I was like blown away. I was like, "Well, doesn't matter what I think. This is great. Like, let's do it." And so that's what I like. I like founders that are just sort of executing on their weird things, and then it makes it a no-brainer for me when they're like, "Look, it doesn't matter whether you think this is weird or not, but look, here are the numbers," and I'll be like, "Yeah, it makes sense." Plus, it's cake. Like, who doesn't like cake? So everyone should download the app mess around with it. It's really cool. And then buy a cake for no reason because you should get cake, that's it.
What
We all
markets do they
deserve
cover?
cake.
Is it only in GCC?
So it started in Bahrain and Saudi, expanded to the UAE. But the best thing is, it's Lola's more of a software layer. He works with local bakeries, so he doesn't really have any infrastructure. So it's quite easy for him to expand into new markets quite quickly. So yeah, if you want it in Jordan, just I'll ask him and we'll see.
Yes, please.
But if your family's anywhere else in the GCC, send them a cake today so that they can be happy. I guess that's the.
I'll send one to my sister
Amazing.
in Bahrain.
Yes.
I'll send one to myself.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the thing. Like
Yeah.
we invest in weird. You've got to invest in something different. You can't invest in always the same sort of thing. Like you've got to have an eye out for founders that are building things that honestly, when you first hear about it, is like, that's so weird, that's stupid. Like, what are you doing? But those are the ones that end up generating the outlier returns. If you don't get that initial reaction, it's like, oh yeah, all of this kind of makes sense. You're not gonna get an outlier. You're just gonna get okay returns, and that's not what I'm in this business for. So, yeah.
Congratulations, Hasan. I mean, betting on the right entrepreneurs, and definitely like Foodtech is a hot space in this part of the world and maybe all over the world. I mean, people wants to see a lot of innovation around many traditional industries. Foodtech is one of them for sure. So I'm excited to try the service and give you your guys' feedback as well.
Awesome.
Do you see scalability issues, Hasan, for Lola?
No, because there's purely a software there. It's working really well. I think that they can scale infinitely. However many cakes the world wants to buy, I think they can probably supply them. So it works out pretty well.
Wonderful. Congratulations. And yeah, I mean, I'm in Dubai, so I'm downloading as soon as we finish, I'm downloading Lola.
Great. Excellent. No, it's
Wonderful.
great.
Yep.
Well, you know where to go for cake now.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Hasan and Mohamad, Samir, and of course, Jamie, for bringing us all this news.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks,
guys.
guys.
See you
Thank you,
next
guys.
week.